Well, hey there. Welcome to the People Gardener podcast. Happy to have you here this week. I am really thrilled to have Marla Seng with us today. Marla is going to share her experience and knowledge about human design. Tell us about yourself, and then also let's get into what is human design.
Great. Thank you so much, Rhonda. I'm a holistic career coach, which means that I use some unconventional modalities like human design and astrology to help people figure out the type of work that lights them up. And my background is in the law. I was a lawyer in the corporate world for about 14 years. And, it was a very good, stable career, but it really wasn't lighting me up and I didn't feel fulfilled. And on the side, I was always very interested in metaphysical topics like astrology, like human design. And the more I got into them and started giving people readings and working one-on-one with them, I really enjoyed it. And I thought I want to have more of a personal impact on people and help people find what they really enjoy doing. And so that's how I ended up moving into this career that I have right now.
Very good. Polar opposites, right?
It is, it is. I mean, in some ways there are similarities. It's funny, I've thought about this before. In the law, you learn the regulations and the laws, and then you apply them to specific situations to be
Right,
able to give your clients advice.
right.
And that's actually very similar in human design and astrology as well. We take your particular birth chart and share what is known about that. I like to ask. I don't ever assume things about people. I like it to be a conversation, and hopefully one that brings insights to people, but also gives them some kind of insight that then can help them make decisions for themselves. So in that sense, there's a little bit of that counseling kind of approach
Right,
that's
right.
similar.
Well, I'm sure most of my audience, they'd be familiar with the Myers-Briggs and the Strength Finders and the DISC assessment. And I mean, there's so many of them out there. Uh,
Yes.
I would bet that the vast majority have either never heard of human design or it's just something recently that's kind of shown up in their world. Let's start with what is human design?
Yes, so human design is different from those assessments in that I haven't taken all of the ones you mentioned. I've taken some of them, and generally, you're answering questions, right, based on your what you think the right answer is for yourself. Whereas with human design, it's similar to astrology. It is based on your birth information, so the date of your birth, and the location of your birth. And there's a chart of what's called a body graph that is created from that information, and that gives you your own particular information about your human design, which is kind of like your personal operating manual. It has a lot to do with your energy, how your energy works. It has mystical origins. I like to focus on the practical aspects, but human design, but the founder, Ra Uru Hu, that wasn't his original name. He was a Canadian. He had a different name, but in 1987, so this is not too long ago, actually, he received the download for this system. And it combines more ancient traditions, more ancient systems like astrology, the I Ching, the Kabbalah, and the chakras. So when you look at the body graph, if you're familiar with any of those systems, you may see elements of them in the body graph. And basically, it shows us how our energy works and how we impact others, how they impact us, what our gifts and challenges are. And it can be very helpful because we're not all the same. And so we may think we are, but we're really not. And it's really wonderful to understand the differences so that we understand how better to work with, on teams, with clients, with family, with friends. It's very enlightening in that way.
So once you've learned your human design and did you call it a body graph?
Yes, it's called a
Yeah.
body graph, or yes,
What,
or your human design chart. We could call it
right.
that too.
Okay.
Mhm.
So once that has been established, what you're saying is the information that's there is going to help you to know yourself better, know where your energy likes to flow versus where it doesn't,
Yes.
and also how it can help you in your relationships with other people that you may work with, may live with, may come in contact with.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Does it have the same types of categories as the others?
There are there are categories, and so we call them types. There is a bit of a debate as to whether there are 4 or 5 types. And I like to think that there are 5 because, well, I guess I'll go through them just to
Yeah.
explain.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome.
And yes, so the most common types are the generators and manifesting generators. And these are types that have consistent access to life force, workforce energy. So we like to say they're the doers, they're creative powerhouses. And by creative, I don't mean artistic. I mean, they're creating things, right? So a business is creative, for example, right? And so they really are meant to be doing things that light them up. And the only difference really is that the generators are more of, they have like a step-by-step process and how they learn, how they go about things. Whereas the manifesting generators are more, they're more usually like multitaskers, multi-passionate. They kind of might pivot more often than a generator does. But some people think that the manifesting generators are basically a subtype of the generators. So we have those types, which are about 70% of the population. So the majority of us are generators or manifesting generators. Then the other 30% are 3 other types. You have manifestors, who are about 9% of the population. They're the ones who get things going. They're innovators, initiators, disruptors. Freedom is really important to them. They're really here to get the ball going for the rest of us, and then for other people to kind of implement things. And then they go on and they keep, initiating. And then you have the projectors, who are more, they're natural guides, advisors, teachers. They can see really deeply into people. They have this X-ray vision, and they can really see the potential of somebody and how things can be better, right? So that's about 22% of the population. And then you have the reflectors, who are 1% of the population, and they're really here to reflect sort of the well-being of their community, their environment. So it's a very interesting, even though it's just 1%, I actually have met some reflectors. And so they're really fascinating because they're really here reflecting the rest of us, how things are going for everybody. And so that's, so when you get your chart, you will clearly see which one you are. You're only one, but of course, there are going to be other things that then change. Not all generators are the same. Not all projectors are the same. They're going to be deeper layers that give more nuance. But that's sort of the first layer is your type. Yes.
Okay, so you go through an assessment with you, you get your type, then what? What do you do with this information?
Yeah, one of the things that I love about human design is that it's very actionable, in that you don't have to learn everything about your chart to begin to do something with it. So once you know your type, there's what we call, each type has a strategy, which is the ideal way for that type to navigate the world, which means the best way for them to use their energy, the best way to for opportunities to come to them, for example, or for them to find opportunities. So generators are here to respond to their environment, to things that are tangible, that come to them from outside. And so that can look like hearing something hearing a song that inspires them, or reading an article, or listening to a podcast, for example, and they get an idea from that. And they feel this burst of energy that's like, oh, I'm really interested in this. And it may not be logical at all. They may be like, I don't even know why I'm interested in this, but it's something for them to follow, right? And so there's manifesting generators also respond to their environment. And then there are also manifesting generators, one other step that they have, because they are kind of, I didn't say this before, they're a hybrid of generators and manifestors. So they are also meant to inform people of what they're going to do. So they respond to their environment, and then they tell the people who are going to be impacted by their decision, hey, I'm going to go do this. And the reason for that is because they work very quickly, and so they might leave people in the dust, and then people are like, what are you doing? What is happening? And then they get mad at them. And so it's really a way of lessening resistance to what they're doing, right? And then you have the manifestors. They're here to initiate, and so they actually get this internal nonverbal creative flow, and they just have a surge of energy, because they're not here to be doers all the time, but they get these surges of energy where it's like, okay, it's time to go do X, whatever it is. And they're also meant to inform people as a way of lesson. It's not asking for permission. at all. It's just telling them, I'm going to go do this, right? And that lessens the resistance, and then they go off and do that. The projectors are actually here to wait for an invitation to be recognized for the value of their advice. So it's not so much about their doing. They're not really here to be doing. They're really here to be advising. And so once they have people who recognize them and who invite them into opportunities, into situations, relationships, then that's really when their energy can flow more easily, right? And then with reflectors, when they're in environments that feel good to them, that's what's best for them. But then also when it comes to decision making, which is another part of human design, they're meant to be waiting a lunar cycle, like 29 days to make their decision, because of the way their chart is, which we haven't gone into what the charts look like. But if you imagine like the chakras, for example, energy centers, if you're to look at, there are 9 of them in human design in your chart. If you're to look at a reflector's chart, all of them would be white instead of colored in like some of the other types have. And so they're taking in a lot of energy, and they get to actually experience throughout the month what each of the other types experiences. So they're very interesting. And so they need more time to process things and then to make decisions.
Right. As you're going through this, I chuckle just because this is what I call myself, a feast or famine. My energy is just bam, do,
yes.
and then I need to rest. I need to leave it. I need to go away. And then it's bam.
That's amazing.
My whole life it's been that way. And I know I've been really hard on myself, because when I leave it is, oh, you're quitting, you're lazy, it's those that bit of self-talk that comes in. And it was so funny when I joined Business by Design, which we're both a part of. On the back of the shirt, the next level shirt that I got, one of the things was to chunk it. And that was my word for this year. Be okay with chunking, with do it and then leave it and come back, and do it and leave it and come back. So yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the really fascinating parts is, like I said, 70% of the population are generators and manifesting generators, the doers, the go, go, go. That's not to say they don't need rest. Of course, everybody needs rest. But in general, when they are lit up, they can keep going for a long time without rest. The other types, manifestors, projectors, and reflectors, their energy ebbs and flows, and they are really not meant to be doing the traditional 9 to 5. I've talked to them, to several clients, and they tell me that they can do about 3 hours of work and then they need a nap. That doesn't mean they don't get things done, but they do things on a different timeline, basically. Yeah. And a lot of the times they grow up feeling that they're lazy, or other people think that they're lazy, and that's really hard for them. And they're not. It's just their energy works differently. That's all.
Oh, this is fascinating. Okay, so what's the first step that someone needs to take with you or with somebody that practices this in learning about their own human design?
Yes, the most important first step is to get accurate birth information, especially the time. That's the hardest, is the time of birth, because usually people don't know that. They have to look at their birth certificate. Not all countries have that on their birth certificate, so you might have to check with mom. And honestly, for certain parts of human design, some of the characteristics can change within minutes. And so it's really important to try to get the most exact time as possible. But once you have that, then there are free human design charts that you can just look up online and input your information, and you can actually get your chart. It's not always going to be super user friendly, in the sense that you'll just see all of this jargon and you're like, I don't know what this means, because that's how it was for me when I first looked up my chart. And so but you can definitely find information online if you just want to start there and see, well, what type am I? What does it say about me? Right.
Well, hey, listen, I'm recording this on video and it will go on to YouTube. Do you have a chart that you could actually share, like what it looks like when you're talking about this chart?
Yes, let me find one that doesn't have somebody's personal. I can share this one. Let me know when you see it.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
On the right-hand side, when you look at it at a body graph, you're going to see all of these numbers and symbols on both the right-hand side. There's a column running on the right-hand side and then one on the left-hand side. And these are the planetary placements. So on the right-hand side, the black side, these are where the planets were on the day that you were born, or the daytime that you were
Right.
born.
Yeah.
And then anything in black that's in here is coming from that right-hand side. And that's really, we like to say that's your conscious side. So these are, if we were to go through some of the characteristics, you might you more easily recognize them in yourself if they're coming from this side, the black side, the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, this is where the planets were about 88 to 89 days before you were born. So it's different from astrology, because in astrology, you're just going to get what the placements were on the day you're born. But here we also get this is the unconscious side. And so these are things that you may not be as aware of in yourself, but that others can probably pick up on more easily. And so anything that's in red, any of these lines, for example, that's coming from the left-hand side. And then you have all these shapes in the center. These are energy centers. They're similar to the chakras, but they're 9 of them instead of 7.
Right.
And so depending on the important thing is whether one is colored in or not. So when something is colored in, like let's say the second triangle here that's in green, and the colors don't mean anything as far as like the green or the brown, the yellow, red. It kind of depends on which software you're using. What matters is whether it's colored in or not. So whenever something is colored in, that's where you are broadcasting that energy to other people, and they're receiving it from you. Whereas when something is white, when one of the shapes is white, then you are receiving energy from other people of that energy center, and you're amplifying it. And so it's when you start comparing your chart to the charts of those around you, it's very interesting to see how the dynamics work. And then all of these numbers, there's 64 of them. These correspond to the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching. They're all themes and characteristics as well. So sometimes they're colored in, sometimes they're not, and they all come from one of the sides of your chart. When you have, like here, you might see, I don't know if you can see my cursor. Can you see it?
I can.
Yes. So I'm kind of circling around the 17 and the 62. When you have 2 of these are called gates. So the numbers are called gates. When you have 2 of them that are colored in, they form a channel, which is like a strength that you have. And that is what causes the shapes that they connect to be colored in, to be defined. And so definition is really just when you have consistent access to that energy and what you're broadcasting, whereas when something is undefined or open, then that's when you're taking in the energy from other people. And it's where we learn a lot of lessons, because we're experiencing that energy through our interactions with other people. So we're getting to experience it in many different ways. And that's where there can be a lot of wisdom and a lot of lessons.
Humans and creation is so fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It's really fascinating. I mean, and they're always deeper layers. So yeah, these arrows as well tell us things like the one the top one, this one has to do with your ideal way of digesting food or information. Taking in information is very interesting. And this one is the ideal environment for you. This one is your ideal view, and this one is like your ideal motivation. These are deeper layers of human design, and they're even more. So it's fascinating. It gets so interesting.
If somebody like this, somebody's saying, wow, this is cool, I want to learn a little bit more. Do you have a what do I want to call it? In our online world, we call it freebies, or do you have an assessment yourself that people can actually grab hold of?
Yes, I have a guide that I like to focus on career. And so I created a guide it's about 9 pages, and it's 3 ways that human design can help you manifest a career that you love. So there's certain, you can go through it and get some information. It's really for somebody who's new to human design and they're just wondering, how can this help me with my career? Right. And it's on my website. My business is called Many Worlds, Many Possibilities. So the website's, Many Worlds, Many Possibilities.com. And then my Instagram is Marla J Seng, TSENG, and there's a link for it there too.
Right. Well, we'll make sure all of those links are in the show notes. So when you say that you work specifically in the career area of this, can someone still use that type of an assessment if they're wanting to affect their personal life, their
Oh,
relationship,
yes.
or
Yes,
their
absolutely.
or that kind of thing. The basic information is all going to be there, and your guide is more, how do I use this information, or how do I take action so that I can have this career that I want?
Yes, yes, it has a focus on career, but the basic information, so type, strategy, authority, we didn't talk about, but that's a decision making. It's interesting because some people are meant to make spontaneous decisions, some people are meant to sleep on their decisions. There's different types of authorities with these decision making characteristics, and some people, for it's not that many, but some people, for example, are meant to do a lot of what we call soundboarding. So just talking to people they trust, not to get advice from those people, but to hear themselves speak about a situation. And when they do, they can hear, at some point it's going to click and they're going to hear what the correct decision is for them. And
Right.
I think that's just fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, it's those sorts of things I think can be really helpful when you learn that about yourself. And you
Right.
might already be doing it intuitively, but it just helps to validate that that's the
Mhm.
correct process.
Right. Very, very cool. So, anything else you think my audience should know about human design, and why they should, you know, maybe do an assessment?
Yeah, I mean, it's really great for teams as well, because it can really help you understand. So again, going back to, for example, the decision making, knowing that maybe somebody on your team needs more time to make a decision, or maybe they're really quick. And it's just helpful to know these things. And also that certain types prefer yes, no questions. They like to be able to, so like the generators, manifesting generators, when you present them with a yes, no, or this or that kind of question, they can get this gut response. And the other types generally like to have more open-ended questions. So that's actually really helpful to know as far as communication styles within a team, you
Yeah.
know. And there's another aspect that's called profile, which if you were to look up your chart, you'll see this fraction. So it'll be like 1-3 or 3-6. And those numbers, there's 6 of them. They tell you more about yourself as well. So for example, somebody with a number 1, they really need to feel very secure in the information. Like they have to know everything about something or feel that they do before they move forward. Somebody with a 2 is a very natural talent. They're not studying. They just are really good at certain things, but sometimes they're so good that they don't even realize it's a gift. Other people have to sort of make them aware of that. Somebody with a 3 is a very natural entrepreneur because they're here to learn through trial and error. And really, they don't usually get it right the first time they have, but then when they do, they can share with other people, this is what worked, this is what didn't. Somebody with a 4 is really good at networking, connecting people, and getting their opportunities from the people that they know. Somebody with a 5 is here to come up with really innovative solutions, really practical solutions. And somebody with a 6, they're here to have sort of this higher perspective and be a role model. So it's just fascinating. Once you start learning that as well about yourself and others, you can really have a better understanding of the dynamics, and so I think that's really great for a team. Or even if you're learning about, the best way for you to interact with your clients, to attract people as well. I think all that's really interesting.
We'll definitely make sure your contact information is in the show notes, because I'm sure there'll be some that are just fascinated by this. I am. The more we can learn about ourselves and how we naturally, innately operate,
Yes.
we're going to be living a life that is much freer, instead of
Yeah.
trying to pigeonhole ourselves into something that just is not feeling quite right.
Yes, and that's especially true in business because there's so many different strategies and ways to do things, and certain things may not feel right to you, even though people are saying, "Well, this is the best way to do it." And really, it's the beautiful thing about human design is we're actually meant to be our own authority. We're really meant to listen to, be in tune with our body, and be trusting our intuition.
Right.
And this is just, this gives you more insight into how to do that.
Right. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Marla. Appreciate you being on.
Oh, thank you so much, Rhonda. This is a lot of fun.
Okay, that's it for this week, folks. We'll talk to you again next week.